Okay, so we are live. Let me put on our little, see our comment thing here and see if anybody's joining us. And we'll just let some people jump on, Gabby, and we'll go from there. Oops. I'm going to see what it looks like. So Alexis says, hi, Joan and Gabby. So we've got Alexis joining us. And I want to see if I can share. Back. Share. Okay, let's do this. All right, so let's get started. Hello, everyone. It's Joan here, and we're doing our Tuesday chat in the 71st District. We're starting a little bit early, so we'll just kind of wing this a little bit while more people are joining us. So I wanted to introduce my dear friend, Gabby Palmer. I wanted to bring her on as she is a part of local government. She is an alderwoman in Rock Falls. So I felt it was very important to make sure that, you know, we realize that local politics, local leadership is so important, especially with the state level, like as well. So, hi Gabby, how you doing?
Hi, I'm good.
Good. Well, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon, or this evening, I should say. It's looking a little dark outside and blowy, so I don't know. I'm hoping that we don't get cut off with our internet and such, but we'll go forward. And I just wanted you to introduce yourself, Gabby, to everyone and talk about being an alderman. You know, many people don't know the importance of what that position entails in our local government. So take it away.
All right, yeah. So I'm Gabby. I live in Rock Falls with my fiance and my daughter. So I work full time as a financial analyst in Princeton, and then in my off hours, I serve as a precinct committee woman for the Whiteside County Democrats, and I'm also an alderman for the city of Rock Falls, as Joan said. So I was in Rock Falls. It's honestly my favorite place in the world. There's just something about the Sauk Valley area that makes me feel very at home, and that's kind of why I choose to commute to work so I can raise my family and serve my community here.
That's great. So what how long have you been an alderwoman?
About a year now.
Okay, I thought it was probably about that. And what
Yep.
ward are you in Rock Falls?
So I am in Ward 1. There's 4 different wards, so I'm kind of more on the west side, northwest side of Rock Falls, like high schoolish area.
Okay, okay. And how are the wards determined, do you know, maybe you don't, by the number of like the population, the people that live in that area, or is it just geographically kind of split up, or?
Nope, I believe it is determined by population. So we'll probably be redistricting, maybe redistricting once the census is in. So,
Okay, okay. So
yeah.
Gabby brought up a good point. The census, I did a little thing a couple months ago, I think, For anybody out there that hasn't filled out their census, it is so important to do that. Not just for your local community, but for the state. Federal dollars, whether it be for education, infrastructure, that kind of things, is based on your population. So if Illinois, if Rock Falls, Sterling, all the parts of the 71st district can stay strong, and that we show that we haven't lost, then we will be able to get those very much needed federal funds. So please fill out your census. It's easy to do. You can go do it online. If you got the paper, you fill it out. It takes about 5 minutes. You mail it and you're good to go, right? Right, Gabby?
Yeah, ours online. It didn't take hardly any time at all. So
And I think that people think that it's very it's not invasive at all. I mean, there's really not that much information that you share, nothing real personal. You don't share your social security number or any type of bank accounts or anything like that. It's just basically who lives in the house and how many people there and what their ages
yep.
are. And I think you're able to, tell if you want to your ethnicity, but I don't know that that's 100% that you need to do that. So they really just want to know who's living in the houses. So good to go. So
Yep.
Gabby, what made you decide to get involved in local politics, being an alderwoman?
So I kind of knew that I wanted to run for something. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can contribute to your community, but I felt like my calling was probably serving in politics. And like I said, I really love the town of Rock Falls. So when I found that there was an opening in my ward, I thought I'd go for it. I was actually appointed. I wasn't really elected. So the mayor appointed me last summer, and then I believe my election. So I would have finished out the term for the alderman who resigned.
Okay.
So I will actually be up for election in April of 2021.
April of 2021. So, okay. All right.
Yep.
And can you tell everyone what what is the role of an alder person, an alderwoman, alderman in your local
Yeah.
government?
So, an alder person is an elected official that represents the citizens that live in a certain section of a municipality. So, in Rock Falls, we have our mayor, and then we have 8 aldermen. So, Rock Falls has 4 wards, and there's 2 aldermen per ward. And like I said, I'm in Ward 1. So, in Rock Falls, all the aldermen meet twice a month to discuss and vote on issues at our regular city council meetings. So obviously we're here to represent the issues of the people in our ward. So we'll do our best to research an issue and see how it might affect our constituents. The idea is that you represent the people in your little section of the city. I feel like that's probably more important in bigger cities. Rock Falls is a pretty homogenous city, so I feel like Rock Falls, you can like talk to anybody in the community. You don't necessarily have to, stick to your little section. So I've held meetings with business owners and talked to people who aren't in my ward and still answered the questions. So if there's an issue that gets brought to me that needs to be addressed by the council, I'll start by forwarding it to the chair of the appropriate committee, because there's a lot of different committees that we each serve on. So.
Okay. So is that that would be the process for someone, they have a concern, say it's there's a sidewalk that needs to be attended to, or there's maybe a sewer issue or something, that's consistently not being looked at. So they would contact their alder person, and then that person who is representing them would then take it to the council, and you guys would discuss or see how that goes then.
Yep. Yeah. So all the aldermen are listed on this website with our contact information. So I mean, you can just call one. A lot of times people don't know what ward they're in. I didn't know
Sure.
what ward I was in until I got appointed alderman. So yeah. So just, I mean, you can just us, and we'll get you to the right people, or we'll get your issue to the right people.
Sure, sure. Interesting, interesting. So, what committees do you serve on?
So I serve on the OPLS committee and the finance committee. The OPLS committee is the Ordinance, Personnel, Licensing, and Safety Committee. So on that committee, we will review proposed ordinance changes. And an ordinance is just like a city law, basically.
Mm-hmm.
We'll make a recommendation as to whether the council should adopt the change. We do interview and select hires for all departments except for police and fire. We review safety meeting minutes, and we might review liability and property claims against the city as well. So this is a committee that gets a lot of activity because, if you want a law change in the city, it's going to start with the OPLS committee. So as an example, this committee set up all the ordinances around marijuana legalization back in 2019. So that was a big job.
Mm-hmm.
And then my other committee is the finance committee. And so obviously the finance committee reviews the finances of the city. So we'll usually approve bills, and we'll help and create and approve the budget. We'll monitor the performance of investments that the city has going. We essentially just try to protect the financial health of the city in the short and long term. So, as an example of something that we do, when Rock Falls passed the tax increase for the new fiscal year, that was a recommendation that came from the finance committee. And so, something else we're dealing with right now would be adjusting our budget to accommodate the shortfall of revenue that we're going to see from the COVID-19 shutdowns, and just try to figure out how that's going to work for the city.
Sure, sure. So you guys, you act as stewards then to the revenue, that's going to pay for the different parts of the city, running the city, the programs, the services, probably like the maintenance services, those people, the city parks, all those things that we really rely on and love. That all costs money, and you need to make sure that you are spending those revenue tax dollars appropriately then. So,
Yep. Yep.
cool. Awesome. Well, I think that, I'm not sure, I know that growing up in Sterling and just being a young adult, trying with the family and stuff, you've got your property taxes that if you're a homeowner, you pay into. Can you talk a little bit about some different revenue sources that that the city relies on? And you mentioned COVID-19. I'm sure a lot of our municipalities are trying to figure out, because there is going to be a definite shortfall. So you're probably having to almost redo the budget, or really look at some things that you can do short term, and hopefully in the long term be able to maybe make some of that up as things get better. Or
Yeah, so sales tax is a revenue stream, which is where kind of the shortfall is coming from. Property tax is there. That's pretty solid. You're pretty much always going to get your property tax funding. We get actually a pretty good chunk of our budget comes from our public utilities. Um, I know there's probably going to be people in Rock Falls who disagree with me. I think we're an extremely blessed city to have public utilities.
mm-hmm.
Our public utilities, not only do they cover the cost of running their department, so they cover their own costs, and they also contribute about $1 million back into the city. So
Mm.
that's a major revenue stream. So yeah, so I know, sometimes I'll hear complaints about how expensive our utilities are, but mom lived in Sterling for a while, and I would say my utilities are much cheaper than hers.
Mm-hmm.
And, we have the benefit of that money going straight to our community instead of going into, a corporation's pocket. So
Sure.
I really like having public utilities here in Rock Falls. So yeah, so that's a few different revenue streams we have coming.
Okay.
We
Yeah.
get, so like motor fuel tax is another one that pretty much gets used for like road repairs and things like that. So yeah.
You mentioned the motor fuel tax, which, I know that everywhere in Illinois. Illinois raised the motor fuel tax. It went up by 18 or 19 cents, I believe. It doubled. I think it was originally at 19 cents, and then we increased it. The legislature increased it double. And, you know, it was a big hit, but I looked at it in the long run, and I understood, and maybe a lot of people don't understand. And it's important to know that that motor fuel tax was not ever linked up to adjust for inflation. And so for the better part, I believe, Gabby, you may correct me, I might be off, but I think that the last time the motor fuel tax was even touched was about 9 years ago. And so for 9 years now, roads and bridges have needed repairs. Materials have gone up in cost. Labor and things like that have gone up in cost, but we were still just bringing in that same 19 cents. So it just wasn't going very far, right? And so when they decided to increase it, they actually brought it up to the level that would be consistent where if it kept up with inflation, and that's why it went up to 19 cents. Is that what your understanding is?
I believe so, yeah. And so I know when the motor fuel tax doubled, there was a lot of concern from citizens of the state about the cost and all that. But here's the thing is I commute to work. It's about 80 miles round trip every day for me. So I'm putting about 400 miles a week on my car. And I calculated that it was probably going to cost me maybe an extra $10 a month.
No.
So definitely not something that's going to break the bank.
Right.
And the way the motor fuel tax works, so I would say the number one complaint the city gets is probably that we need to fix our streets, and I'm sure that's not unusual for. I'm sure that's the number one complaint in every city. And the way the motor fuel tax works is, I think there's a big misconception because I've heard people say like, well, you know, if we bring in a truck stop, we'll have the money to fix our roads. But the way the motor fuel tax works is it's actually based on population. So the motor fuel tax all goes into a big pot, and then the state divvies it up based on population in your city. So really the only two ways to increase the amount of motor fuel tax money you're getting is to either A, increase your population, or B, increase the pool of money. So we could have 3 truck stops in this town and it wouldn't change the amount of motor fuel tax money we get. So yeah, so honestly, I think the increase in motor fuel tax is actually going to be beneficial for cities. So
yeah. And it's good information to know because, you know, you think about as you're driving, it's a usage tax. I mean, if you control how far or how much you drive, then of course you won't be, you know, putting that much gas in your car, and you'll have some control over it that way. And I think too that with the efficiency of our vehicles now, I mean, we're still putting the wear and tear on the road, but our fuel efficiency has gotten that much better. So we're not filling up like we normally would. So that's another reason why the motor fuel tax, I believe, needed to be adjusted accordingly so that we get that revenue in so that we're able to fix the roads and the bridges, keep things not only in good condition, but safe. You know, we don't want people to
for sure.
be getting into, you know, accidents or wrecking their cars or, you know, that kind of thing. It's a safety issue as well. So good information. Thanks, Gabby. I appreciate that. So,
Yeah.
you know, as an alder person, you know, you have a lot on your shoulders. I mean, you want to do the very best for your community. And so what is your vision for Rock Falls?
So, like I said, I think this area is a great. It really bums me out when I hear young people talk about how this area is dead or it has nothing to offer, and that if they want opportunities, that they have to leave to go find them. So, you know, I challenge my generation and even the generation behind that. Instead of leaving to find opportunities, I would really love for our young people to get involved in city government or pursue volunteer opportunities with some of our local organizations to help shape the community into what they want it to be. So we actually currently have an alderman opening in Ward 2. the mayor will be appointing very soon. So there's a map of Rock Falls on the city website that shows how the city is broken down into wards. So if any of our listeners know someone that lives in Ward 2 that they think could be a good appointee to the council, have them, send an email to the mayor. I think Rock Falls is perfectly primed for economic development. We have 3 different entrances to the interstate. We're an hour from Rockford. We're an hour from the Quad Cities. We're 2 hours from Chicago. And the city has put a ton of effort into revitalizing the riverfront area for recreation. So really my vision for the city is that my generation and the future generations, focus on what we have here and how we can use our city and our resources to generate the opportunities that so many young people go look for in other cities. And I would say that if you feel like your elected officials are the ones that are kind of stagnating or not doing as much as they should be to improve the city or improve the area, then you definitely need to get vote and you better get to the voting booth because that's where change happens. So
they say that all politics is local, and you mentioned
yes.
about how your vision for Rock Falls and the younger generation. I think it's always in the young people's mind is that they have to leave to go and find themselves, find opportunity. And, we've got great area, like you just checked off so many positive things that Rock Falls has, the interstate access. You've got the hotels over in Rock Falls. You've got the beautiful riverfront. I know over in Sterling, we've got a beautiful view of the Rock Falls riverfront, and it's just coming along so nicely. And I know as a Sterling resident, I look forward to when Sterling has their riverfront done up as nicely. We are small communities, but we can think outside the box and we can play upon the things that we have as advantages. We've got the river, we've got access to beautiful parks, and like Barack Obama shared in an audience that I was at, he said, your community is only as good as what you're willing to put into it. So Gabby just mentioned in Rock Falls, there's Ward 2 that's looking to be having an appointed alderperson. So please, she's recruiting, get involved. What's the age requirement, Gabby? We have to be voting age, right?
I think, I think it's just voting age. I don't even think it's I don't think I have to be 25 or anything
Right.
like that. I was 26 when they appointed me, but I don't think there's a minimum age requirement. Maybe 21.
Yeah.
But I don't think, you don't have to be 30 or anything. So
Right. Well, and I think it's just important, and research shows that the more you get involved with your community at a younger age, the more investment that you have in it personally, and you do tend to see the brighter aspects of your community as opposed to just the negativity. So we've got great organizations in the area, great nonprofits that help out and really need volunteers. So just little things like that just strengthen our community so much. So kudos, Gabby. Really appreciate you being part of that. Um, so, I'm running for state representative, and I wanted to bring you on because from your seat as a alderwoman, what do you look at? What is the role of alderman as far as working with the state legislature? What do you need from state government?
yeah, so I will say, full disclaimer, my opinions do not reflect all the opinions of all the elected officials in my municipality or really most municipalities, especially in the state of Illinois. But I think that the number one thing we probably need is tax reform. So we desperately need a tax system that allows our residents to more equitably share the tax burden. And I know that's something you yourself are concerned with, Joan, because property taxes are crushing our property owners. I'm a huge supporter of the Fair Tax Act, and if any of our listeners aren't sure what that is, I encourage you to research it. So essentially, it would move Illinois from a flat tax where everyone pays 4.95% of their income in state income tax to a graduated tax rate, where your income tax rate would increase as you make more and decrease as you make less. So under the current proposed plan that will be up for vote in November, 97% of residents would see no change or a favorable change in their tax burden. You would actually increase in your tax rate if you make more than $250 a year. And if you want to see how that personally would affect your tax calculator on the state of Illinois website, and I know when I put in my income into the calculator, it actually showed a slight decrease in the amount of income tax I would be paying. So I think there's a lot of misinformation out there about what the fair tax is or what it would do and not do to the residents in the state. Honestly, a graduated income tax rate is nothing new or scary. The federal government operates under graduated income tax. So I think it would be a positive change for the city. It's definitely, or for the state, it's definitely a step in the right direction. And then, in that vein, we kind of need to do something about the police and fire pensions. And I don't know what that is. I'm not going to pretend to know what the answers to the pension crisis in Illinois because there's just so much to it. But I know that at a municipal level, the financial obligation that is put on us to fund the police and fire pensions at the level that's required unsustainable. Rock Falls was forced to pass an almost 14% property tax increase for the 2020 fiscal year to meet our obligations, and it felt awful to do that to people in the city who are already struggling to keep up with the cost of living. But there really was no other option. There really wasn't. So, I had to take more than incremental change to address the problem. And frankly, I feel for our lawmakers who are faced with addressing some really tough decisions regarding pension reform.
Sure. I want to just touch on the fair tax. So, as Gabby was saying, the fair tax will be on the ballot in the November election. We want to, the wording will say that you agree or you vote for the state of Illinois moving from a flat tax to a graduated rate. If you look at all of our neighboring states, they all are under a graduated rate. Illinois is one of 9 states, I believe, that is at a flat tax, which is part of the problem for Illinois is that forces, it's only so much revenue that's coming in, and that forces then for the state to put the responsibility on the local municipalities. And local municipalities get their revenue from a range of taxes. It's like Gabby shared, the sales tax, the motor fuel tax, but a big part of it for our schools, for our public health and safety, it comes from property taxes. So Illinois is upside down. We put too much of a burden on our property tax owners, our property homeowners to fund things in our local municipalities. And you're right, it's getting totally out of hand. And as a state and as a legislator down in Springfield, the first step in rectifying that and giving some relief will be to go from that flat tax to a graduated tax. So, and another thing I wanted to share, which it's not known, is if you are living on a retirement income, the state of Illinois does not tax retirees. Okay, so for all the things that some people think are negative about this state, we've got that going for us, right, Gabby? We don't tax
Yes.
we don't tax retirement income. So, but we need to understand as residents of this great state of Illinois, and I love living in Illinois, I love living in Sterling, I love living in the district. We have a lot going for us. We just need to get on the path so that we can do things the right way. And this graduated tax amendment that's on the ballot will be that first step. So I think that's something you can go to illinois.gov. You can do the fair tax calculator at illinois.gov. Like Gabby said, she put her income in. I put my husband's and my income in, and we'll see our income tax responsibility go down $178. Doesn't sound like a lot, maybe, but hey, it's $178 we're not putting in, and we can put it to somewhere else. So I recommend that you get anybody listening, you get informed about what that is, because it is the first step in righting the ship of Illinois. So thanks, Gabby, for bringing that up. And then what you said about the pensions, huge, huge responsibility. I know that Governor Pritzker, and I haven't seen how that has made any movement. But he was talking about putting the fire and the police pensions throughout the state, because every municipality oversees their own pension for their police and their fire. And you can do a lot of big things when you consolidate that, all of those different funds, you consolidate them together, you get more purchasing power, more investment power, and that is, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, in the different articles that I've read, is the way to go. So that would give the relief to our municipalities, make them a little bit more stronger, and give some easement on that, while still protecting the pensions for the fire and the police. You know, they pay into it. So this is not, you guys, anybody listening, this isn't like the police and the fire, they just walk away with these great retirements. I mean, they are very nice retirements, but they pay into them, and it's a promise made, and we just need to make sure that we protect them, and we do it in a very sound and prudent manner then. So we don't have any questions. We've got some hellos there. Kristen's was saying hi. Gabby has always been transparent with the people of Rock Falls, especially with property tax pensions. She is, in my opinion, the most informative and the most approachable alderperson. Very good. Way to go, Gabby.
Thanks, guys.
So let's hit this. What do community members need to know about budgets? I think most people think that there's just a pile of money and you guys just go willy-nilly spending. How do you guys get to that budget approach there in the city of Rock Falls?
So first, our budget is available on the city website to review, and so are our audit results. So if anyone's feeling, particularly interested in reading up on some finance, definitely head over there and take a look. I will say, I'm an accountant, and even I struggle with government nonprofit accounting because it is a whole different animal from for-profit accounting, which is what I'm used to. But our city administrator does a great job breaking it down into layman's terms. She's got a really nice PowerPoint on this website to break it down for you, so you know where all the money's coming from and where it's going. I did mention earlier, a large chunk of it comes from public utilities. And then I mentioned the motor fuel tax. So some of this stuff is actually, the motor fuel tax, for example, can only be used for street repair type stuff. So that money can specifically only be used for that. We cannot, shift that money elsewhere and use it for whatever we want. So with the motor fuel tax dollars, we usually use it to buy salt for the salt trucks in the winter. Maybe save some back to do pothole repairs, fill it with gravel or whatever that is. So the amount of motor fuel tax we get, it's not a whole lot. So we're not using a lot of it for major street repairs, but we are using it for, a lot of what we use it for. Let's see. Another kind of misconception about our budget that I think I hear a lot is that we dump a ton of money into tourism instead of supporting our infrastructure. So tourism department is actually completely self-funded with the events that they do. So we actually don't put tax dollars in
Mm-hmm.
That's totally funded based off the money that people spend in Rock Falls when they're here. And actually, shout out to our tourism department. They actually use some of their reserve funding to create grants for our small businesses here to give out during coronavirus. So I thought that was like particularly nice of them. That was something really cool. So yeah, so that's I guess some of the key things. Just addressing some of the key budget misinformation that I hear a lot. So again, we've already touched on a large chunk of it goes towards covering our pensions. Let's see, I've talked a little bit about how coronavirus is impacting us. So, for example, we had a big, sorry, 1 minute.
She's got some puppy issues.
Just yelling at my dogs.
That's okay.
So we had plans to redo Third Avenue in Rock Falls, which was going to be like well over $1 million road repair project. We temporarily postponed that. Our city administrator is working on a grant to try to get the money to do that road this year, so we don't have to postpone it. It is a rough road.
Mm-hmm.
So we're hoping we can still do that, but really in the midst of all this coronavirus uncertainty, we've pretty much just cut back on discretionary spending right now, so we're not spending money that we may need later on. I will say Rock Falls is in a particularly positive situation. So actually, it's an ordinance. We have ordinances set up that require us to have a certain amount of reserves. So I think it's like our general fund is required to have like 25% of our budget as a reserve. And then our electric department might be somewhere around there. There's a couple of our funds that we have in our ordinance that we're required to have monetary reserves to cover a portion of the budget. And so that's really helping us out right now because we have those reserves to tap into. So Rock Falls is actually a pretty fiscally responsible city, honestly. And I know some of our residents may disagree with that, but honestly, I think we had like an open budget meeting, and I guess that's one thing I would say is if you have questions or concerns, like attend a city council meeting and attend our budget meetings. They all get posted online about when they are. A lot of them, especially so like the finance committee meets in the evening, the OPLS committee meets in the evening, and I think even like the planning and zoning committee meets in the evening. And I would argue that those are probably the three like most critical committees that are probably going to be of most interest to citizens. So they're pretty accessible for most people in the city, I feel like. So, if when the budget, like when we had our budget meeting, our city administrator went into detail about every single part of the budget, and it was open to the public. So, strongly recommend that, like, you start attending those meetings if you do have questions, because then you won't have as many questions. So
Right. Knowledge is power. And again,
yes.
it's easy for us to sit back and be the armchair quarterback, so to speak, and thinking that, they need to do it this way or that way. But in all reality, you need to be part of the process. And that is your, we all have a civic responsibility to be engaged in our communities and in our government, because you make a lot of decisions that affect the daily lives of the residents. And the same for the state legislature. We need to make sure that, and I am, making a promise, if I'm down in Springfield, I'm going to be very transparent about what's coming my way and why I voted a certain way. And I think it's important, to have these discussions, Gabby, like we're having right now, to at least in a different forum, maybe to let people know what's going on and how things work. So I very much appreciate you coming on this evening and taking up your time from your beautiful family. But again, you're doing a great job over there in Rock Falls, and I look to have you be one of my people that I go to make sure that I'm taking everything down to Springfield that I need to make sure that we're doing it right and bringing good things back to the 71st then. So And it doesn't look like we have any
Yeah,
questions.
absolutely.
So, Gabby, do you want to end with anything in particular, and we'll call it a night?
Thanks for having me on. It was an awesome time. I'm so glad I got to talk more about my position with the city. Sometimes city business can seem a little mundane. So it's good to get a refresher of like why I'm here doing what I'm doing. So
Now you're all charged up, aren't you?
yeah, I am.
Good for you. Well, hey, have a great night. I very much appreciate it. And for everybody out there in Facebook land, we're going to end our time. Gabby, do you want to give them your connection? They can get a hold of you through the Rock Falls website, right? The Rock Falls residents can get a hold
Yeah,
of you.
it's rockfalls61071.net, and then my email and my phone number is on there. So, and it's a
Okay.
cell phone number, so feel free to text me. I'm not much of a like phone call person. I'll take your phone call, but you know us millennials, we prefer like digital communication. So
There you go. There you go. So, well, there you have it, everyone in Rock Falls. You know how to get a hold of Gabby, and she's doing a great job representing you. You should be very happy. So, thanks a lot, Gabby. We'll talk soon.
okay, see ya.
Bye. See, and